Myself, JRC. We got Barry O'Brien, and this is today is launched in Dalhousie Institute. You can see the Anglo-Indians, a portrait of a community. So I'll start, Barry, with the idea of putting this together in a book, right? And you've been part of the community. You've been in here in Kolkata, mixed around with many people. So is it primarily about the Anglo-Indian community you start off with in Kolkata because the Britishers were there, or you were connecting with the larger Anglo-Indian community in India?
No, actually it's nothing to do with Kolkata specific.
Yes.
It's to do with the start of the community, yes, which will have to go back to the Portuguese.
Yes.
Because before the British, the Portuguese and other Europeans came.
The Bandel Church.
No, Portuguese.
Yes.
South India, Kerala.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right from there,
yes,
the Portuguese, then the Portuguese moved up, the Dutch came, the French, yes, came, etc. But the ones who remained were the British. So from the roundabout, they came on for 1700, but from, let's say, after 1750 or so,
yes,
it was the British. That's why the community used to be called Eurasian. It's European Asian. Then they changed the name to Anglo-Indian.
Yes.
So some people actually say that's a wrong name, because Eurasian is more correct, because you'll have people like De Rosio. That is a Portuguese origin.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Or you'll have a friend of mine is called Van Berle.
Yes.
He's of Dutch origin.
Yeah. Yeah.
My great-grandfather was Boucher. He's of French origin. Anyway, so that's that. So it's all to do with the community around the country, yes, over the last 500 years, not only Calcutta. But yes, Calcutta was the capital for the British as well as, and therefore the main hub for Anglo-Indians. Madras, which is now Chennai, and Calcutta. These are the two main hubs. After that, the community is spread all over and very thin. 20 here, 200 there, 500 there. But the main hubs are still Calcutta and Chennai.
Yes. So talking about this book, as you can see, this is a non-fiction, right? But when you read out certain passages, when Raju Raman sir was there, there were narratives which were like very engrossing, like someone getting into the field of experiencing of this entire very touchy experience, sensitive experience of the entire field. So how this narrative style you thought about,
It's wonderful that you pick it up. Actually, I have finished being a teacher, finished being a quiz master.
Yes.
I still do quizzes, but I am now almost 60, so I have decided that I want to become a full-time writer.
Yeah.
And basically fiction. Just when I was going to start on, I've written a lot of fiction which I'm going to get published.
Yeah.
I got this offer where David Davider of the Aleph,
yes,
he called me and said, we want you to do a book on the Anglo-Indians. So I said, but I'm not writing non-fiction.
Yeah.
So because I'm not, I thought, capable enough to write non-fiction, it's a different skill and art altogether.
Yeah. So
he said, no, you're the right guy, you know the community, etc., etc. And I, fortunately or unfortunately of the community, I'm the President-in-Chief of the All India Anglo Association post my father's death in 2016.
Yeah.
So besides being, I was a follower and I'm a leader, I've lived with the community, I'm very much a part of the community. Yet, he felt that I could look at the community from outside as a commentator, as a writer, as a historian,
yeah,
and give a balanced view, which I didn't believe I could. I thought I was too emotionally and passionately invested in it to write a fair assessment of the community. But he said, he had faith in me. He said, no, you start writing. I promised him in 2-3 years, which didn't happen. It took 5 years to write this book. But as I started writing, I didn't think. I just said, unless I write about me as an Anglo-Indian, my family, Calcutta,
yes,
friendships, etc., how will I bring out the spirit of the community or what the community is?
Yes.
Tomorrow if you ask me to write a book on Calcutta, I can't only write about when the Howrah Bridge was built and omuk pujo hoy. I'll have to write, Ami pujo te giye ki dekhechi. Yeah. So it'll have to be a personal, not all of it obviously, there's history and there's other things. So that is why the book became rather thick, but I discovered myself as a non-fiction. Now I'm hooked on non-fiction,
yes,
because I feel that if you write non-fiction in a story, I'm basically, immodestly I feel, I'm a storyteller. not a non-fiction historian. So I managed to bring that simplicity and storytelling ability to this, and you've spotted it very well, I must say.
And I have a question now. So like, when you have written this book, like, do you think that this comes as a kind of like something which breaks the glass ceiling? Because a lot of people have assumptions of Anglo-Indians, like the Zoroastrians is a very less discovered community. So do you think this acts as a it will kind of open the windows for a larger audience to know more about them?
You're absolutely right. I didn't write it for that. They asked me to write it, so I wrote it. But I would have written such a book maybe 10 years later when I had nothing to do. But to write it now was a challenge in the middle of all my work. But to answer your point, I just felt that if I am going to write it, it has to be the whole story. The whole story from my perspective, may not be complete, but the whole story. So that people who don't know anything about Anglo-Indians, or people who have a clouded, and they're not sure about it, they would read it. And read it in parts and get some, and it wouldn't be clouded anymore. But I'm happy to tell you, or unhappy to tell you, that many Anglo-Indians also don't know enough about the community. So the book is, as you rightly say, it's for non-Anglo-Indians who don't know anything about the community, non-Anglo-Indians who have mixed with the community and yet want to know more, as well as Anglo-Indians who many of us, including me, I was writing the book and discovering more and more as I gave so many examples. A rediscovery, a new discovery. It is part of what, and I didn't say I must clear cut some misconceptions, but just came naturally, because some people have very fixed notions. I don't know whether you know this. There are many Marwari friends that I have who are not wealthy.
Okay. Well, it's like, people associate them.
People associate, all of them are wealthy. No. They may be all very enterprising. They may be all very hardworking, but they are very wealthy, super wealthy. There are wealthy, there are middle class, there are lower middle class, and there are even needy Marwaris.
Different strata.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to say to you that the misconception, it shouldn't be there. I know many Bengalis who don't eat fish. So those stereotyping days are gone now, because the world has become a small place.
And very quickly about the historical context, and I think you received a letter from Ruskin Bond. That was a great acknowledgement of the stupendous work he said you put in over here. And since there are historical facts, you have married the historical facts with your sense of humor and spontaneity, which you already expressed. So, couple of three key things which you mentioned about the Anglo-Indians' contribution to engineering, aeroplane, and
no, that was just one person.
Railways,
armed forces, education, nursing, women's country.
And one of the key things you said, women stepping out.
Yeah.
That, I think, if you can just highlight.
See, basically all communities have contributed so much. I mean, small communities like the Parsi community. If you think of the Parsi community, you think of them, whether it's business and enterprise, whether it's legal profession. You think of the Punjabis, Sikhs and Punjabis, it's agriculture, it's the armed forces, it's sport, etc. When you think of the Anglo-Indian community, you think of many things. You think of sport, you think of travel, you think of music, etc. But I feel the strongest contribution that we have made, the country has made, community has made, such a small community, is to education, of course, especially school education. That is known. Armed forces, numbers, and post-independent wars. Then the railways. I mean, history has not given enough recognition to the Anglo-Indian community for building the railways. Obviously, the British took all the credit, but it was their idea and their money on their planning. But the actual execution, the engineers and the groundwork, and managing the labor of other people. Okay, and in those days, can you imagine the 1870s, 1890s, turn of the 19th century, turn of the next century? Imagine Britishers going to malaria or cholera infested places where there were no toilets and nothing. They wouldn't have gone.
Yes.
And the Indians, those days they said Indians and Anglo-Indians separate. Indians, what would they do? So here was the middle person who could converse with them. So the railways was a huge thing. And after that we helped run the railways. But the greatest contribution, as far as I'm concerned, is this what you say, what I describe as the woman stepping out. 150 years ago, when most other families in India, grandmothers or great-grandmothers were at home cooking or looking after the home, here was a woman who, she went as a nurse, and imagine, as I've written in the book, being with a naked man whom you don't know, and literally cleaning his private parts. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine a woman, basically the war is on and she's in her dress and she's walking and going to the telephone operator, which had to be done, a job that had to be done. And in some cases we were lucky. Hindus were not being allowed to go, Muslims were not being allowed to go, they were fighting, and then the Anglo-Indian woman went, you know. Or not being conscious about wearing, if you have to dress like a hockey player, to dress like a hockey player, to go and become a teacher. So this stepping out, and this was obviously misunderstood by many, and you know, stereotyping came in because of that. Oh, they're mixing with men. Well, what can we do? They're mixing with men. And you know, I've written over here, did some Anglo-Indian girls smoke? Yes, they must have. Did some Anglo-Indian girls drink? Yeah, they must have. Not all. How can you stereotype? And why are you saying it as if it's wrong? Today, I see so many non-Anglo-Indian girls smoking and drinking. That doesn't mean they're of loose character. But 50 years ago, 80 years ago, it was just considered that. So coming through all that, that stereotyping, I think the contribution of women in
deconditioning
yes, and
of all stereotyping
sure proves to be an entertainer because we were mesmerized by your talk and we could go on listening for sure. And also, like, to end on a funny note, can you talk about your DNA test, because I was very intrigued by that.
Actually, one of my brothers, I'm not going to say who, 3 brothers we are, so one of them, you can guess who, suddenly decided, or his wife told him, I'm giving you a birthday gift, gave him a DNA test, and he sent us the things. He's saying, we are 3 brothers, so we must be having the same thing. So we saw over there, I haven't a clue, I thought I had 90% Indian, but it turns out that about 40% is not Indian, still European, and 60% is Indian. So I joke with my mother-in-law, who we live together, and every few days I tell her, hey, Mom, you're eating with a spoon and fork? How much percent European are you? I'm 40%, I don't know what you'll have done to me, I'm European. I joke with her, etc. So my wife and I decided to do a DNA test for some medical reasons. And it turned out almost the same. Give a little more. In fact, I tell my brother, hey, you're 2-3% less than me. Sometimes it happens because of the thing. But it's amazing that with 40% of so-called me being from Europe, I go to Europe and enjoy myself as a tourist. Not for one moment am I thinking, amar part deshe fire eschi. Nonsense. Because I believe your roots are under your thing. That doesn't mean English is not my language. English is my language.
But you speak better Bengali and Hindi, I saw.
No, I speak Bengali.
Better than a lot of Bengalis.
Okay, yeah, I speak better Bengali than many Bengalis. While I was the MLA in West Bengal, I was the nominated Anglo-Indian MLA. I used to speak in English because of my mother tongue. And then once or twice I spoke in Bangla, and all the MLAs then came and said, Shaib, they used to call me Shaib. Shaib, English te khub bhalo bolen, fantastic. But Bangla jokhon bolen na, tokon ekhane lage. So speak in Bangla also. So I used to speak in English and then give the anecdote or the punch or the story in Bangla. And it's not something, it just comes out of me. Like actually, if you tell me it's only only an English audience, I'll struggle because something will come out. You know what I mean? So I think basically the DNA test, and you want me to end it on a fun note, so that's the way I joke with my mother-in-law. I've told you a real fun thing. But on the other hand, that I don't think of going to Cork in Ireland, where apparently my great-great-grandfather came. I may go there and have a beer or something like that. But as a tourist, for me, my community and my race is Anglo-Indian, not European Indian. You know what I mean? It's a separate race as far as I'm concerned. You know what I mean? And it comes as a combination of both. I really think people who are mixed race are really fortunate because you can get the best of both worlds.
Well,
when they see my here,
genetics also says that like people with mixed ancestries generally have better, like their brain cells are much more developed.
I don't know about that, but I feel really comfortable when people say, I would prefer speaking Bangla like this with a name like Barry O'Brien than Bibhash Mukhopadhyay.
Okay, yeah.
Because they'd expect you to speak like that. When they say Barry O'Brien, and after that, তখন আমি যখন বাংলায় কথা বলি, then they got zapped. Or when I speak in Hindi, you know. So it's at the same time, they look at me and in a few minutes, they know that I'm basically an Indian.
Yes.
You know, so the lines have blurred. 30, 40, 50, even 30, 40, 50 years ago, you could make out an Anglo-Indian. Slowly you can't because they're all speaking the language.
And there's an overlap.
No, and then there's overlap of, you go to the disco.
Naturalization as well.
Both ways, and you go somewhere, the habits are the same. People have stopped eating absolutely monk food or absolutely Anglo-Indian food. They're having pastas and everything.
Yes.
So there's a global culture which is blurring all cultural lines.
Also, like the very interesting fact, which we will end with, is the last thing, which you said that you're someone you knew who went to Australia, but that umbilical cord thing happened, and she's like now dancing to a Hindi song.
Correct. The umbilical cord, in fact, is the soul of the geography. One of my favorite lines: the geography of the soul.
Of the book as well.
Yeah, the geography of the soul has changed, and really the soul of the book. You're absolutely right. Thank you for that beautiful line. The soul of this book is that the community originated, blah blah blah, and its contribution, blah blah blah. But today, Anglo-Indians in India, of course, there's no question about it. But there's an Anglo-Indian gentleman who came here, I forgot to say it. He doesn't know, still, he eats only with a knife and fork, and he only dances like that, and he only doesn't know a single Hindi song, etc. But Jai Hind bolta hai. Okay? Yeah. So that's the soul. And this lady who went away to Australia, she never wore a sari, never wore a salwar, but she wanted a ghagra choli, and she was dancing to Kuch Kuch Hota Hai. And they come back to India, not going from India now to the UK or wherever to find their ancestry, and that is our home. This is home.
Yes.
Thank
so
you
we'll
very
end with
much.
that, and if you want to read this book, please go to
you can,
Starmark,
you
and you
can
we
have
promise
this.
it would be
It's
an
also,
entertainer.
I thank Starmark and thank all of you, and thank the Dalhousie Institute.
Yes.
It is available on Amazon in India and abroad. So get yourself a copy. Don't try to read it. It's a thick book in one go.
Yes.
Okay, just treat it like a buffet.
Yes.
Take a little, then swallow it, and leave it, absorb it, then pick it up some other time. It's all separate chapters, so you don't have to read it at one go. Except in the beginning, it's chronologically done. But after that, you can just enjoy it like a buffet.
Yeah.
But we're sure it will be an entertainer. Mark our words.
Yes, and last one word from Barry's. Your favorite Kishore Kumar song and Eric Clapton song. Both these two. Yeah, because this is what your spirit is all about.
Well, I wrote over here how my mamas used to sing Kishore and Muhammad Rafi and playing the dining tabla, and my father would sing some totally different songs.
Yeah.
So you put me in a fix. I will dedicate one song to my mother in Hindi.
Yes.
And she's an Anglo-Indian. She's European-looking Anglo-Indian. And my father, who I will sing as Frank Sinatra.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fantastic.
So, which one first?
First your father.
For father?
Yeah.
Okay. No, we'll start with my mother. Okay, we'll go for the Hindi one. So we'll go for the Hindi one, which one of the songs that my mother liked. Tera mujhse hai pehle ka naata koi, यूं ही नहीं दिल भाता कोई, जाने तू या जाने ना माने तू या माने ना. That's the connect with me and my mother, and from the railway colonies that she came from, and loved Devanand, etc. She liked older songs also, and my father was totally different. So his favorite song was Strangers in the night, exchanging glances, wondering in the night, what were their chances we'd be sharing love before the night was through. Something in your eyes was so inviting. Something in your smile was so exciting. Something in my heart told me I must have you. So, a message to all Indians.
Yes.
All this is part of,
Brian.
all this is a part of India.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think it's
Yeah, I was thinking you will say